Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Pinot with Phoenix 2024. Ben, welcome in. How are you doing this evening? For those of you who might be new to the rituals of Pinot with Phoenix, all this is my monthly recap show where I go through and talk about everything that happened on the channel. And it was another very busy month for September 2024. Especially as I've been getting more of the feel for streaming on my laptop, I've been definitely picking up the video content that's coming out. So we're going to go ahead and recap it all. First game that we're going to talk about, and we're not going to talk about them in any particular schedule order, is we're going to talk about game number 8 on my Tack Up Wargaming list as we played Tiger Leader from Danverson Games. This one puts you in control of a German squadron in World War II. We played through Given that September 1st fell on a Sunday, I just couldn't resist the opportunity to do the invasion of Poland to start World War II. We cut the 1st Battalion down to half strength, but there were some quality issues in there that I was bothered by. I did like the RPG aspects of the game where you level up your team, where you level up your commanders, but I don't see myself returning to this game, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get deeper into the video. Welcome in, Doug. How are you doing? And yeah, I had you at Pinot. Good to know. Next we'll talk about the fall campaign that I went through in Astronight's Eternity. Astronight's is a space deck builder by Indie Boards and Cards, where you're buying weapons, fuel, and tech to improve your deck. We actually just played the last scenario of that today as we took on the final boss in Eternity. I felt like, and to be honest about this one, I alluded to this a little bit earlier when I actually streamed the last boss, but it didn't really feel like a campaign game necessarily, because there was really no overarching story. Well, there was an overarching story to it, but there wasn't really the campaign flow to it, where where basically one game impacts the next. There wasn't really that kind of a feel at all. So I didn't get the sense of, okay, it's a real campaign at that. I think this is another one of those games that works a lot better as a series of standalone scenarios. So I will probably be coming back. I'll probably come back to Astronight's Eternity in the future, but I don't think it'll be as part of the Expeditions mode, just because, again, works better as a series of standalone scenarios. If that makes sense. Next up, we actually did quite a few war games this month. Next up was another game out of the Leader series from DVG, as we played U-Boat Leader. This one, similarly, we played it through the start of the war campaign. I don't remember what the campaign was called, but it was at the start of the war, basically. We ended up with an adequate campaign evaluation coming out of this one. I didn't really like this one. Again, similar RPG aspects with Tiger Leader, but combat ended up being very confusing. I feel like if I want a sub-game, I'm probably going to reach for something in the Hunters series to give me that U-boat feel in a more narrative setting. So I'll probably stick with the Hunters for that. Speaking of the narrative setting, in a game that should have been similar to the Hunters, we actually played Interceptor Ace version 1 from Compass Games. Similar to the Hunters that I alluded to, this one actually puts you in a German interceptor during World War II in the daytime skies, and you're trying to intercept the Allied bombing runs over Europe. This one, I went through 2 sorties that actually didn't go very well because we got wrecked on on both of these runs, I think. The fighter orientation that you have to deal with actually caused me a fair amount of confusion in combat as I was trying to make sense of everything there. So I didn't actually end up liking this one, and I think this and Interceptor Ace Volume 2 are going to be on their way out of the collection soon enough. So I don't think I'll be getting anything more with Interceptor Ace to the channel. Next game we're going to talk about is Age of Innovation from Pureland Spiel. This one is set in the Terra Mystica universe, where very similar to Terra Mystica, you're actually building up the living space for your civilization with an emphasis on learning. You've got your workshops, your guilds, palaces, universities, and schools as your main buildings. I'm really starting to like this one because it feels like a more modernized Age of Innovation, or Terra Mystica, I should say. But let me talk a little bit more about how the game actually went. I took out the Scholars starting on a mountain space versus the Cuddlers, which is one of the automas that you can play against in that game. And we very much ran away with that game. I forget what the final score was, but it was not a close game at all. Intelligence, there's a concept, indeed. So I mentioned a little bit about Terra Mystica showing its age. And the main way I'm kind of seeing Terra Mystica start to show its age a little bit is in the cult tracks, where there's no variety to them. They're all completely the same. Whereas Age of Innovation, you actually can manage your different resources, and if you're able to advance on multiple tracks, you'll get income you get more income based on the tracks. So there's an element of, okay, I need to go up this track because I need such and such kind of thing. One gives you victory points. You also can get workers, coins, and I'm trying to remember what the fourth one is now. Workers, victory points, coins. I forget what the fourth one is. But been enjoying my Meg 23 playthrough. Brutal game, but fun when the dice rolls go in my favor. Oh, we're going to talk about Meg 23 Guadalcanal. It's definitely on... I was going to say it's on the list here somewhere in this mess. It's going to be quite a ways down, though. So, coming back to Age of Innovation, like I said, I do really enjoy this one. And I know there's an expansion coming for Gaia Project, which is the space game in this world. So I'll be looking forward to getting that out. I've already got a pre-order in with my local game store to pick that up. So that should be coming to the channel sometime in the future. Welcome in, Jester. We're just starting on the game recap, and it's going to be a long one. I was playing a lot of games this month. Next up, we'll talk about the background campaign for Hero Realms. For those of you who aren't familiar with Hero Realms, this one is a fantasy deck builder. If you played Star Realms, it's the exact same game. Hero Realms is basically just Star Realms with a fantasy coat of paint. So you've got your various characters that you can go through a campaign with. And unlike in Star Realms, Hero Realms' solo mode focuses primarily on the campaigns. There are some extra solo challenges in there, but again, the main focus is on the campaign. So I started a new background campaign in the Ruins of Thandar, which is the first level campaign with the Ranger, which is one of the characters in the game. We ended up defeating the enthralled regulars, not like easily, but we weren't really in much danger in that one. It's a simple deck builder, but I really enjoy this one. And we've got quite a few baseball games coming up as well, as I was picking up a little bit on the baseball testing now that I've settled on adding Digital Diamond as my stat keeping program. So we'll talk about the baseball games next. First up, we'll talk about Inside Pitch Baseball. And I've talked before about how Inside Pitch is one of the most conflicting games for me in the collection. Where on the one hand, in terms of narrative, Inside Pitch does almost everything I could possibly ask for from a baseball game. On the other hand, it has been torture to learn this one and be able to present it well on the channel. Anyway, for this game of Inside Pitch, we went to 2009 for a matchup between the Chicago White Sox and the Milwaukee Brewers, which the White Sox ended up winning 9-5. And as I mentioned, really enjoy it. But again, still really enjoy the narrative focus, but very hesitant around the very heavy rules. So I think there's that trade-off there of, yes, you get more of the narrative in Inside Pitch, but on the same token, there's a lot to learn in that one. So we won't spend too much time on Inside Pitch. Next up, we went to Season Ticket Baseball, which is another baseball simulator, a much simpler baseball simulator, I think, especially compared to Inside Pitch. And I really like the challenge system in that game, where you can either potentially advance based on speed challenging the fielder's arm, and other challenges like that, challenging the hold rating to try to get the jump on the pitcher. For this one, we went to 1998, St. Louis Cardinals at the Houston Astros. We ended up with a 3-3 tie, because I was a little bit confused with the bench and Digital Diamond, but that was on me forgetting that, hey, it scrolls a little bit. But it was starting to run a little bit long, so I ended up cutting that one short. And I really enjoy the simplicity of Season Ticket. I especially like the price point, although by the time you factor in ink and cardstock to print everything out, The cost, I think, ultimately washes out with some of the other more expensive baseball systems in the end. So that's season ticket baseball. Next baseball game up was APA baseball. I pulled out the Merino boards for this one. We went back to 1975 for a matchup between the Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox. And the Red Sox won this game by a final score of 2-0. It's a very simple game, but the narrative is almost non-existent, where I have to do a lot of theater of the mind to really fill in some of that narrative. Where an inside pitch, you get a clear roll of like an S9 being a base hit to right field, and you get all of the stuff following from that. APA, you really have to use theater of the mind to supply some of that narrative detail because it's not listed in any of the play charts. I do like the simplicity, and this was also the first game where I debuted, when I'm streaming baseball games, only checking in with the chat every half inning, and I think that really helped cut down on the play time, so that's probably what we're going to do with baseball games moving forward, is we're only going to check in with chat every half inning. So really enjoyed APA baseball, I should say. Last baseball game for the month, let me just double check here. Yes. Last baseball game for the month was Stratomatic Baseball. Still getting the feel for this one, and I'm probably going to be adding in some more advanced rules when I finally get this one back to the table and or the channel. For that game, we went to 2013 as the Philadelphia Phillies and the San Francisco Giants came out. The Phillies won this one by a final score of 6-3. Again, still getting the hang of the game, but I do enjoy this one. And I don't have a lot of love lost with either Strat or DVG, but I'm not here to talk about that. And Benwitz says, yeah, that's the way to do it. Not like it's urgent to only check in with chat every half inning. Okay, that's like I kind of liked getting into that rhythm, a little bit of stopping in, checking in with the chat every half inning. So it all ended up working out in the grand scheme of things. I even played a couple of football games this month as well, so we'll talk about those next. We actually played 3 football games on the channel. And Bill Thornton, welcome in. Hope you're enjoying this might be a first episode of Pinot with Phoenix that you're stopping by to check out, but welcome in. And we're just going through the game recap. So we played APA football this month as well. Now, with the play-by-play games, I've been a little bit hesitant about putting those on the channel because I know how long they are, and I'm still kind of looking at them with an eye toward doing season replays, but a play-by-play football game is not going to work well for that at all, especially if I try to do all 4 quarters. That's going to be way too long. So for APA football in particular, we pulled out the 2002 Super Bowl set as we played the Oakland Raiders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oakland ended up leading by a score of 14-0 after the first quarter. Now, I did have an idea for getting the play-by-play games on the channel as the base game for a season replay of only playing the 4th quarter. So using ticker and other house rules to set everything up there. But I still don't think it worked well. Actually, I take that back. It actually did seem to go pretty well because the first quarter only ran for about an hour long. It's still very long for comfort. I do enjoy the game, but I think this is one I'm probably going to enjoy more off-channel than on. I don't think it's going to make good content at all. So this might be, again, something I explore more off-channel. Next up, we had Momentum Football. I actually played this one 3 times on the channel. For Game 1, I replayed, would have been the debut on the channel, I replayed Super Bowl 45. Historically, it was Super Bowl 55. Historically, it was 48-21 in favor of Tampa Bay. It wasn't close. But this one actually was pretty close in Momentum Football, where Tampa Bay beat Kansas City by a final score of 20-10. Games 2 and 3 were both in 1972. For Game 2, I went with the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers with a ticker tape test using Ultra Quick Football by Downey Games, which is going to be my ticker for a special project that I'm going to talk about a little bit later during Pinot with Phoenix. Looking at my notes here, I don't remember the Packers won a nail biter in that one by a score of 17-16. So the ticker test actually went pretty well on that, and as I mentioned, I was preparing a special project with that, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Game 3 was actually the 1972 demo game, so I'll give away the project now. I'm getting a 1972 replay using Momentum Football ready to go. The demo game for that one was a Super Bowl VII replay between the Washington Redskins and the Miami Dolphins, and that one was not close at all. I think historically, Miami won 14-7. In the demo game for Super Bowl VII, Miami won that game by a final score of 44-10. So it was a blowout, but it was more worried about preparing the 1972 replay to start on October 1st. As far as why I went to 1972, it happened to be the ticker I had ready for the aforementioned ticker test. So I just went with 1972 as my replay season for Momentum Football. Say that 5 times fast. Then last up with the football games was last night, where we played Glory Days Pro Football from Sideline Strategy Games. This one uses several different varieties of dice. It's got 2d6, 2d10, and a d20 in it to determine your plays. So it automates a lot of the play calling for you as well. For this one, we went to 1985, played the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. It was almost a 2-hour game, so it was maybe a little bit on the long side where I'd want to use it, but I probably could use it as a base game for a replay. I'd have to set things up just so, though. The Bears actually won that one by a final score of 33-17. This is another one where I'm kind of not sure on what kind of content it's going to make, but I did really enjoy this game, and it's a good hybrid. It's a good middle point between a drive-by-drive and a play-by-play game, where you've got the simulated drive to set everything up. And then once you cross midfield with a drive, then you go into play-by-play mode and play it out like a full play-by-play game. Hopefully that ramble kind of made sense. But that's it for the football games. We even had a boxing game that I put on the channel. I had to break this one up into 2 parts because there were some technical issues that I had as I played Title Bout 2 by Straight Jab Media. This one's a boxing simulator using a boxing action deck of cards. For this one, we pulled out Evander Holyfield versus Tyson Fury. Holyfield won on a unanimous decision in a 15-round fight. I do still really enjoy Title Bout 2, and I'm considering bringing back Thursday Fight Night once I get clear of some of my other special projects and in off-seasons. But that remains to be seen. Obviously, there's going to be no Thursday Fight Night during any of my season replays that I'm getting ready. So just look out for that more in the off-season. Then we had several war games. I'll kind of bounce around on the rest of the games in the roster now. We pulled out Mag 23 Guadalcanal for 2 videos, 3 days in the campaign. August 30th and 31st, 1942 were the first video. August 30th was a very quiet day where we didn't actually have anything going on there. It was kind of it ended up being a washout where the CO just looked at the report and tore it up as far as the mission goes. Then on August 31st, which was in that same video, we actually did have a more eventful day. We had a mission that we had to go out on, but we ended up getting a new CO from Phoenix crashing and being killed. Then on September 1st, it was another quiet day where I kind of wanted to advance the story along a bit, and we lost on the day. Of course, got some kind words from Historic Wings on that, and in case he stops by and watches this episode of Pinot with Phoenix later, he mentioned something about it being fast for me to write these. One, there are 2 reasons I had such an easy time writing that after action report for today's video. One, it ended up being a short day anyway, and 2, I'm going to take a quick drink of my Crystal Light here before we continue. Feeling a frog in my throat. The other reason that after action report was so easy to write and quick was because I already kind of had a rough idea coming into the video of where I wanted the story to go. I kind of wanted this to be the day after the previous CO got killed, the new one's brooding about now it's his responsibility to see the troops home safe and push the Japanese back, and it helped that there was another heavy washout, so we ended up canceling the mission. And I'm really enjoying the narrative focus that goes into Mag 23 Guadalcanal, where if you've been watching the videos on Mag 23 Guadalcanal for a while now, you know I didn't start doing the after action reports until just recently, but I really like adding in that narrative aspect to the game. So, yeah, this is one that'll definitely get to the channel again. Next game up, we played Fate of the Elder Gods by Greater Than Games. This one actually is a switch from almost anything in the Cthulhu mythos, where you switch sides and you're actually playing as the Ancient Ones trying to get summoned. I played as Dagon for this one in something of a layout test for the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament during Christmas in Arkham. Layout looked good on that test. We ended up getting Dagon summoned, and I did really enjoy the game. I'll have a deeper presentation about the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament, but basically, the short version of it is I do a solo play of each Ancient One that crosses all 4 games that are part of Christmas in Arkham, where I divide the Ancient Ones into groups of 3, and then each of them does a solo playthrough. Then there's a winner's group, and the winning Ancient One, essentially based on tiebreakers, is my opponent for Christmas in Arkham. Again, more details on that to come in November when we start getting closer to the tournament. But that's it for Fate of the Elder Gods. Next up, we had a game of Marvel Champions. This one dumps you into the Marvel Comics universe in control of heroes in SAME. You're building a deck around those heroes. We took Black Widow and Phoenix out for a fight against Crossbones. This one was a close fight, but I really did manage to pull it off. And I do really enjoy the game. It's not necessarily as strong in the narrative aspect, I don't think, but I really enjoy the game. And in fact, I've talked about this before, where Marvel Champions has got that, what I call that treadmill campaign experience, where you have to win each scenario to move on to the next one. And I won't beat a dead horse, but I will say that I absolutely loathe that treadmill campaign experience, and it was the same thing with Astro Knight's Eternity. So, hope you've been good. Happy belated birthday. Well, thank you for the kind words, Wusa, and welcome in. So, next game we're talking about here is Night Fighter Ace by Compass Games. This is another game that's kind of set in that Hunter's style in the skies of World War II Europe. So this one puts you in control of a Night Fighter Ace, of a Night Fighter over the skies of World War II Germany, where you're trying to intercept the Allies again. We had another quiet night of sorties in this one, and I really enjoyed this game without having to worry about without adding the plane orientations to the game. So, not having that to worry about as much really helped me out on that one. So that's it for the ramble on Night Fighter Ace. Next up, we actually debuted a new game on the channel. I think we've got 2 more new debuts coming up on the list of games. We played The Cards of Cthulhu by DVG, aka Danvers and Games for those of you who don't know. The Cards of Cthulhu is actually a card-based game driven on trying to defeat various Ancient Ones in the Cthulhu mythos and trying to keep your cult boards under control from any of them waking up. We've got our Wasa, who's an Ancient One I've never heard of, Chognar Foggen, which is an Ancient One I've only seen sporadically, and then Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth, which I'm much more familiar with. The expansion also introduces Nyarlathotep into the game, but we weren't playing with the expansion for this playthrough. I did enjoy this game, and I've been having a, shall we say, mixed relationship with DVG of late. So, yeah, I do see getting that one to the channel again, especially with the expansion as I start learning that one. So that's it for the Cards of Cthulhu. Next up, we had Target for Today from Legion Wargames. This one puts you in a World War II in an Allied bomber, heading over World War II German-occupied Europe on bombing runs. For this one, the Phoenix's Fury finally got repaired, and we were on a bombing run to Emden in this one. The bomber was getting shredded when I tapped out, and you might notice that I did have to tap out on this one. One of the things that really bothered me in this game was the complete lack of player agency in this game, where it's almost, I almost wanted to call it guided storytelling, but I don't think that's entirely accurate. Where I almost felt like it was handheld storytelling, where you're basically bouncing from chart to chart to chart, and I wouldn't mind that so much if I actually felt like I had any kind of impact on the story. Which is one of the biggest problems I was having with that game that I really don't feel like I have any kind of agency on the story. So I don't see getting that one to the channel anytime soon or probably ever again. That may be one that leaves the collection, which you'd think with a narrative game I would really like that. But like I said, I think Target today was just a miss for me. Last up on the games, we had Bismarck the Last Battle, which debuted on the channel from Compass Games as well. This one puts you in control of Battleship Bismarck and the Prince Eugen, trying to either break out into the Atlantic or get to the safety of France, especially if you get pummeled in the course of the game, which we ended up which we did end up getting pummeled. Still a little bit tongue-tied. So I had to turn and send the Bismarck to escape to the safety of Brest and Nazi-occupied France. Now, you probably heard me kind of ranting a little bit about the instruction booklet for the game. I really did not like that at all. And I actually didn't end up liking the game either. I just don't see the replayability being there as much as I would like it to be. Because once you beat the game, whether it's going to Brest or breaking out into Europe, I mean, you could theoretically pull it out again to try to do the other thing. So I could theoretically pull it out again to say, okay, this time I'm going to focus on breaking out into the Atlantic. But then after that, you're just like, I'm pretty much done with it at that point. So that's another game that I see probably leaving my collection later this year. So somehow we are just over 28 minutes in, and we're just now getting to Mystical Munchies. So let's recap Mystical Munchies. For Mystical Munchies this month, we were cooking out of the official Diablo cookbook. And here's how the recipes went. For the appetizer, we made the Bandit's Bacon Candy. This was actually very good, even if the bacon was very, very spicy. So with the combination of spices on there, do be aware of a kick on that one. Before I talk about the side, for those of you who are new to the channel, first of all, welcome into the episode of Pinot with Phoenix. Second of all, Mystical Munchies is a segment where I take a nerdy cookbook, like your Dungeons and Dragons, your World of Warcraft, stuff like that, and I'll cook recipes out of them. I'll cook an appetizer, side, entree, dessert, and on months that have 5 Saturdays, we'll make a drink as well. So that's just a very quick intro to Mystical Munchies for those of you who might be new to it. Anyway, coming back to the recap on Mystical Munchies, the side was the hoodwinked honey carrots. The carrots ended up being fairly soggy, which I don't like soggy. I don't like soggy veggies. I talked about it in the episode where I made the hoodwinked honey carrots. But whenever I have veggies, they either have to be what I call lightly threatened or not at all. The fresher, the better I like with my veggies. And then for the entree, we made the Necromancer's broiled fish. I wasn't used to the soy sauce taste, but actually the fish ended up turning out pretty good. And I do like good fish recipes, and getting slightly spoilerific, but there will be another one coming up on next month's Mystical Munchies. I think this will be... Will this be 3 months in a row that I've done fish for Mystical Munchies? What did I do in... I'm trying to remember what I did in August. Actually, if I can get the content schedule, I can... Which I do have that up, so I can find that out. Let's go to 2023 Mystical Munchies. August. Yeah, August was skillet trout. So that's 2 months in a row I've done fish on Mystical Munchies. Last up for the dessert, we had the Steps shortbread cookies. This was supposed to be the Iris plum and honey cake, but I found out something really interesting and probably slightly obvious. Apparently, it's pretty hard to make a plum cake without plums. Who knew? Fortunately, I had most everything I needed to be able to sub in the Steps shortbread cookies on short notice. I did enjoy this recipe, even if it was a little bit floury from some of the spices I used. I was worried about the cookies holding together, but everything seemed to hold together fine, and it was a good recipe. So that's it for Mystical Munchies. Next up, we do have a special topic for this episode of Pinot with Phoenix. We're going to talk about some coming sports season replays. I have announced it already, but in Momentum Football, we're going to start a 1972 NFL season replay in October. I've picked the feature games already for that using the ticker that I had put together. And as far as when we get to the playoffs, I realize I'm way ahead on this. But for the playoffs, we're going to have the 3 division champions for this one. Then the top 3 wild cards will get into the playoffs. The top 2 division teams will each have byes into the divisional playoff round, where 6 will play at 3, 5 will play at 4. The highest remaining seed will go to the 1 seed, or the 2 seed, I should say. Lowest remaining seed will go to 1, and then you guys can probably follow it from there. And as for the 1985 baseball season replay coming up, you may have noticed a poll on the channel about which system out of Inside Pitch or Season Ticket that replay is going to be in. I'm going to make that decision in November, probably after putting both Season Ticket and Inside Pitch on the channel in November. As I mentioned in the description, the poll votes are not going to be the final word in terms of, I'm not going to suddenly say, okay, Season Ticket won the poll, so because of that, the replay is going to be in Season Ticket. It's going to be more of a factor of, okay, more people want to see that. There's other things going on, like I'm more comfortable in Season Ticket or whatever it happens to be. But I will take those votes into consideration when I make the final decision for Season Ticket, or for the 1985 season replay. As of now, my leanings, the content schedule, and that poll all say 1985 is going to be in Season Ticket. And the way my content schedule is saying that is because I'm going to spend the Saturdays in December helping to knock off the rust with whatever system it's going to be in. That will include the 1985 demo game, where similar to RJL, when he does his demo games on Inside Pitch, I'm going to play through Season Ticket nice and slow so you guys can really get a feel for how that game works. But unlike RJL, I'm going to do something different, where he uses the historical World Series teams. I'm going to use all of my demo games, I'm going to use the teams from the last World Series that I did as a replay. So with that in mind, the team that wins the World Series will host the demo game. So with that in mind, the 1985 demo game is going to be a rematch of the 1991 World Series from my payoff pitch replay on the channel, as the Oakland Athletics are going to visit the Pittsburgh Pirates. That demo game will be sometime in December, and I'll announce that. I'll try to announce the date of that when I go through Pinot with Phoenix in November. So before we jump into what's coming in October, we did have one AMA question. What I mean by AMA is this is Ask Me Anything, where you can ask me questions for this segment, and as long as I don't deem them too personal, I'll answer them. 2 questions that need to be answered from that, though, is how do you get a question on for the segment, and what do I consider too personal? How you get a question on for the segment is very simple. You leave a comment on any video between now and the video before the next episode of Pinot with Phoenix, which right now, let me look at the date on my calendar. Right now, I would expect Pinot with Phoenix. Oh, zip it, phone. I know you're low on battery. Pinot with Phoenix might be October 30th. It was probably going to be on Halloween night, which is on a Thursday. Actually, that'll be on a Thursday, depending on where I'm at with the 1972 Momentum football season replay. So you leave a comment on a question, or leave a comment on any video with an AMA tag, and as long as I don't deem it too... The reason you're going to leave it with I don't deem the question too personal, I will answer it. Now, what do I deem too personal? Just use a little bit of common sense on that. There's no necessarily hard and fast rule on that, but the kind of the guideline I always give for the AMA questions is if you don't want it asked of you, don't ask it of me. So we'll keep it nice and simple there. But there was one AMA question. When I was unboxing Storm of Steel from Compass Games, Jester wanted to know what about this game caught my eye. It looked like it was similar to the Leader series, but it really wasn't the Leader series. And that's a big part of the reason why I grabbed this one. Plus, after not having a really good Eastern Front game, I kind of wanted to get an Eastern Front game as well for the collection. So that's what all of that's about. So now I'll bring it back up top and talk about what's coming in October. As I've mentioned, for October, we're going to have the 1972 NFL season replay in Momentum Football. In addition to that, I was getting ready for another fall campaign in Arkham Horror the card game, but I ran into a slight schedule snag as I realized that my group was still going to be doing our Hemlock Vale campaign when I was getting ready to start that campaign. Logistically, I just can't make that work, where I can't have a scenario set up in the game room for a video, then I would have to set it up again out here in the group game area. I can't make that work. I could do TTS, but I didn't want to do that either. Instead, I want to explore some tabletop RPGs in solo. So we'll start off the month with a little bit of freeform Call of Cthulhu. I've done Call of Cthulhu alone adventures on the channel quite a few times before. This one's going to be a little bit different in that I'm going to use the Solo Investigator's Handbook to help me along in going through that playthrough. It's more of a journaling focus where you're telling more of that you're telling more of the story. Then speaking of the RPGs, we're going to have a session of the Legacy of Cthulhu, which that one's set after Cthulhu's basically devastated the world, where the survivors are just trying to do their thing. So we'll have a session of that. Then we'll debut a space wargaming tabletop RPG on the channel as we play 5 Parsecs from Home. Fun fact, I almost put 5 Parsecs from Home on my 10-game challenge list, but I decided not to. I'm starting to get everything I need for that game, though, so we're going to put that one on the channel. And then the last Sunday of the month, we're going to have a visit from the giant Cthulhu statue as we play Cthulhu Death May Die. We'll go through the Relay Rising scenario for that one. As for Wednesdays, we're going to return to an ever-familiar world as we defend Gravehold from the Nameless and Aeon's End. After that, we're going back up to the night skies over World War II Europe as we have another session in Night Fighter Ace from Compass Games. Then we're going up after the German America bombers as we play Defending America, Intercepting the America Bombers, also from Compass Games. Next, we'll have a pair of Historic Wings games debuting on the channel as we play SOE Lysander, and then we'll commemorate the end of the Battle of Britain as we play game number 9 on my TAC-UP Wargaming list in Tally Ho. Mystical Munchies for the month of October will take us into the official Catan cookbook. As we cook out of this cookbook, we'll be cooking Tavern Pretzel Bites and Beer Cheese, 7-grain bread, Harbor Master Fish and Chips, and homemade fudge bricks. With that, we can go ahead and wrap this video up. That's another episode of Pinot with Phoenix for September 24. Wednesday, as I mentioned, we're back to Aeon's End. Saturday, we're starting Mystical Munchies out of the official Catan cookbook with the appetizer, Tavern Pretzel Bites and Beer Cheese. And Sunday will feature our freeform session of Call of Cthulhu. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.